Now, earlier we brought you that story, of course, of the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres being concerned about the re-emergence of the M23 rebel group in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And as Francis mentioned earlier, we are, of course, now joined by Sherwin Bryce-Pease, our correspondent, who is going to be, of course, unpacking this for us. So we did talk about the UN going to meet to look into this. Now, Sherwin, there is, of course, growing international concern now that the resurgence of the M23 poses a real risk to recent regional efforts in addressing an already difficult situation. What are you hearing?
The three members, African members of the UN Security Council, Ghana, Gabon and Kenya, calling for this meeting. Of course, as our correspondent confirmed from the DRC earlier, that the AU chairperson and Senegalese President Macky Sall expressing grave concern over the weekend over these tensions, these rising tensions between Rwanda and the DRC, calling on both countries to calm down and engage in dialogue for a peaceful resolution of the crisis with support of regional mechanisms and the African Union. But this, of course, comes in the context of the resurgence of the M23 rebel group, essentially the acronym for the March 23 movement group, which was largely defeated by the end of 2013. So some years, almost a decade later, re-emerging now as a real rebel concern in the eastern parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo, which it can be argued has never seen peace even since the 2013 Peace, Security and Cooperation Framework Agreement that was signed by 11 regional countries, including South Africa. So what has happened over the last number of weeks? We've seen the re-emergence of the M23. They have been engaged with the FARDC, essentially the acronym for the Armed Forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo. They've been fighting near the army's largest regional military base in the town of Rumangabo near Goma in the North Kivu province. Earlier, there were reports of several days of fighting between the M23 and the DRC army. And the DRC army is accusing Rwanda of supporting the M23. The M23 is essentially primarily a Tutsi Congolese rebel group that operates in eastern DRC, so one can understand the allegations of support, certainly from the Tutsi-led government in Rwanda, something they, of course, have denied. The Congolese government is again accusing Rwanda of supporting this group. They say the Rwandans respond by saying that this is an internal problem for the DRC. The DRC has responded by suspending flights from Air Rwanda. Air Rwanda has then responded by cancelling flights into the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Rwandans are complaining about rocket shelling by the DRC army on its soil. The Rwandans are also saying that 2 of their soldiers were captured by the FDLR rebel group in the DRC, which they accuse the DRC government of supporting. So this is where we are. We've kind of just laid out some of the facts and some of the disputes between these two regional powers that raises certainly a number of questions about the progress one can expect under the conclave group that was brought together under the leadership of Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta in late April. Concerns about whether that agreement now will go ahead. So that is what the UN Security Council will be meeting on later today.
Worrying situation, as you describe it there, Sherwin, but the Security Council also putting out a firm statement just days ago condemning the actions of the rebel groups in the east, while urging those groups to also participate, some would say unconditionally, in the regional process that is being developed under the auspices of Kenya's leadership. Now, of course, these renewed tensions with Rwanda adding to the concerns, as you've just alluded to, Sherwin, about how that process now unfold. So certainly it's really worrying.
It certainly is, because you essentially have two countries that are party to these various agreements, the one in 2013, the conclave that Uhuru Kenyatta in late April hosted. And essentially what the conclave decided to do is to focus on 2 tracks, a political track to facilitate consultations between the regional countries and the rebel groups in the eastern DRC. Of course, it's not just the M23, it's the ADF, it's the FDLR, it's a group called Codeka. A number of smaller rebel groups are still operational in the eastern DRC. So they want to focus on a political track to facilitate consultations between the DRC government and these rebel groups, and then also a military track through the establishment of what they are looking at now as a regional force to fight any of the armed groups that refuse to engage in the consultations and the dialogue with that regional grouping. So it begs the question, what will Rwanda, who is party to that agreement, Rwanda's foreign minister was part of those discussions when hosted in Nairobi, what role will they play in the future of that agreement, given the tensions we are seeing now emerge between the DRC government in Kinshasa and Kigali in Rwanda? So big concern here about how we move forward. The Deputy Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister of the DRC, expected to brief the Security Council later today, and he's probably going to point fingers at Rwanda again. And so it's going to really be for the international community to bring these two parties together so that we can forge a way forward here.
And let's see if in fact they are able to forge that way forward, Sherwin, and bring them to the same table. Thank you so much for putting us in the picture there. That's our correspondent, Sherwin Bryce-Pease, of course, talking about these worrying concerns of an apparent resurgence of the M23 rebels in the DRC.